The title on the agenda is using the premises ID in animal health management, or as I like to say, cool things that the pork industry and stakeholders can do with the standard premises identification number. So thank you for having me, and let's get started. Just so we can reiterate, where the pork industry is on ID, we believe in a mandatory ID system that is species specific and publicly funded. We also strongly support that the state-held system is the primary interface for the NIS and producers. I don't think it's any secret to anybody in this room. Producers are more comfortable working with their state veterinarian and state animal health officials than anybody else. And so that relationship is solid now, and let's take it into the future and make it even more solid. We also support that the movement data that's out there is captured and maintained by producers and in the production systems and in the markets where animals are marketed, and then reported when required. And so we as an industry put together a pork industry identification working group. They were involved in the whole NAIS process back when it was USAIP. And in that situation, we had a working group that represented all facets of the industry from the smallest to the largest, put together a set of program standards that worked for the swine industry that were built on our program standards that were used for the successful eradication of pseudorabies. And started moving forward on promoting those program standards and starting with premises registration. We now have a swine ID implementation task force. They still do exist. They actually met here yesterday, Monday and Tuesday. We actually carried over some of those members. They're in the audience today. So pork producers take this issue very seriously, and actually it's a great industry to work with because they're very proactive, and we want to work on solutions that work for everybody in our industry. We still have outreach and education that goes on cooperatively with the states, and it depends on your denominator that you use, but the NAS data that we use for our cooperative agreement and the numbers that we get back from the state says that we have over 80% of our estimated swine premises registered, and that number is increasing every day, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Why are we so successful as an industry? Well, I can't think of an industry that has more positive partnerships and attitude in regards to our swine ID plan under the National Animal Identification System. We have a consistent message. National Pork Producers Council is consistent with their messaging with the federal government and our congressional folks. The State Pork Producer Association is carrying the same message at the state level to our producers, and our producers are getting the same messages from National Pork Board, American Association of Swine Veterinarians, National Pork Producers Council, our state associations, and the National Swine Registry. And so we have a consistent message that has permeated through our entire industry that is carrying the benefits of premises registration in our swine ID plan. We also have overall industry support through National Pork Producers Council, National Pork Board's delegate bodies supporting premises registration for all pork producers. So, really for us as an industry, we're used to, from the pseudorabies days, having a state identifier for our sites, reporting information when we needed to on animal movements, identifying animals that were in commerce. This wasn't a big step for us to standardize it across the nation with a standardized premises identification number. You look also at our successes as the National Pork Board. We have, as an industry, thrown in over $500,000 over the last 5 years in premises or promotion and activities involving our national animal identification system, swine ID plan, and premises registration. And so our dollars were successful in getting noticed by USDA, and that's what got us our cooperative agreement. And that has been very successful because it provides us boots on the ground. Dallas McDermott, who most of you in the ID world probably know or have met, and if you haven't and you need to meet him while he's here, he is out pounding the pavement every day, using everything and anything that we can as an industry to work with the states to get this done. We've also used cooperative agreement dollars for cost shares with the American Association of Swine Veterinarians, who have taken a very aggressive campaign towards educating the swine veterinarians on how to educate producers on the value of premises registration and the swine ID plan. So really for us, integration into our industry programs of our swine ID plan, specifically Pork Quality Assurance Plus, which I'll talk about in a second, and our We Care initiative for the industry, have all been part of that success. So I just wanted to give you a background kind of where we're at. So I hear a lot of talk about value, and I live in a world where value may be a little harder to quantify because your value is how you perceive it. And in the world of regulatory medicine and trying to move pigs across state lines for production purposes, and we'll do quiz time here. How many pigs do you think are on the road today right now? Wild guess. Somebody throw out a wild guess. Are you awake?
123,600.
123 million.
No,
123,000. There's about, conservative estimate, 625,000 pigs on the road right now, moving between states, either to harvest, to finish out in the Midwest, breeding stock, leaving companies to go and replace breeding stock that are done. We have pigs on the move every day. So anything that would disrupt our ability to move pigs in the pork industry is very, very concerning to us. And the number one and two things that would do that is if we had the reintroduction of something like pseudorabies back into our herd, or the introduction of a foreign animal disease. And so I'll get into the emergency aspects here real quick. But when you look at it for us, how do you quantify business as usual? You know, when we got rid of pseudorabies, now producers don't have to test at their expense pigs so they can move. They can now move because we got rid of the disease, and so, you know, that's a cost savings right there. So what we do every day to ensure our ability to move pigs across state lines at minimal cost to the producers, it's hard to quantify that. So you can go out and say, well, you know, if you participate in the ID system, it's, you know, you're going to be able to continue to do business as is and won't add extra cost to you as far as animal testing, blah, 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 blah. So everything that we talk about is exports. You know, when you look at our industry today, in 2007, $28.91 value of that pig sold today in the United States came from export markets being open. In 2008, that jumped to $40, and right now we're sitting at about $39 a head. And so it doesn't matter whether you export pigs or you're selling pigs in the United States for domestic consumption. That is the price that producers are getting for pigs, and that's the value that's added to it. And so for us, anything that would disrupt exports is also very, very concerning. So really, from Dr. Atchinson's presentation yesterday, I pulled a quote out, and it says, unique ID allows for connectivity. And I think that's a great way to start this off. You know, there's a value to having a nationally standardized and unique premises identification number. Doesn't matter if it's 7 or 10 or 5 or whatever, but just the ability to standardize it nationally and have that unique number is beneficial. And what we've told producers, and part of the reason I think we get adoption of premises registration, is that you have to capture and use that premises for those purposes. You can't just give a producer a pen and say, yep, there you're done, because what are you going to use it for? So if you look at pins from the standpoint, who's going to be out there capturing and using them? Well, you look at state and federal animal health authorities. They absolutely need our premises out there for their animal health programs. And we need them to have those animal health programs in place so we can continue to move pigs across state lines. And they also definitely need the enhanced pre-harvest traceability that our swine ID plan and premises registration can provide. You know, it's really striking to hear our state veterinarians talk about how long it takes to trace things back. And for us as an industry, if we're tracing out pseudorabies, we want to figure out where that disease is and is it as quickly as possible. And so having that ability to do it in less than 48 hours, less than 24 hours, how about in a keystroke on a computer, would be very valuable to us as an industry. State and federal government also need Prem IDs to help industry with planning for emergency response. And it's all going to be tremendously important for us for continuity of operations. You're not going to have a lot of hope to regionalize or compartmentalize without a valid traceability system in place. Also, using the PREM at the state level in partnerships with the industry, our eradication program, like I talked about, pseudorabies, used the state-identified premises identification number. And also swine disease surveillance can benefit from using premises identification. Show you a little picture here. In our program standards, if you read through them, and actually I encourage everybody to go to our website, pork.org, to read through them. They're actually about 6 pages. Pretty easy to understand, but in there, where we're going on when we're fully implemented as an industry is that the premises identification number is going to be delivered to the packer to be captured along with the other records that the packers keep when pigs are delivered. So on the market side, that premises identification number will be delivered with the number of head, the date, the owner, all that records being kept in the packer's database, and of course, if there is an emergency, available to the state animal health officials. Adding that PREM in there is a good thing because now they have a premises to go to. If you look on the south side of things, one thing that's changed or is changing in our industry is that our premises identification number tags for breeding stock that are going to harvest are being implemented and eventually will replace the back tag For those of you who understand how an official back tag works on sows, the retention on that is less than optimal. The industry saw that we needed to improve that and improve our traceability in that area, and so the official premises identification number tag for sows is an important step in making sure that we have excellent traceability on sows and boars that are going to harvest. But the beauty of it is that if you work with the states and the federal government and the industry, you can actually change your slaughter surveillance program from a random program to a targeted risk-based surveillance program. And that's one of the issues that the industry is going to be working on with the state veterinarians and state and federal animal health authorities, is what are the partnerships that we can do with our surveillance program using premises identification to actually remove burdens from the state and help them get the surveillance information that they need for risk-based surveillance, targeted risk-based surveillance. And so hopefully the state vets that are in here, I'll be calling you, talking to you, trying to work through this process. But for us as an industry, pens provide a value to our surveillance program, and we certainly would like to use them. In emergency response, for those people that do that, a premises identification number and a system can make the difference between having one dot on a map or having 100 dots on a map. And when you look at the true world of emergency response, you know, when there is an outbreak of a foreign animal disease or even a program disease, it's very labor intensive if you don't have dots on the map that you can actually connect to a person that you can call on the phone. If we had a foot and mouth disease outbreak today, the reality is in a lot of states, you know, if you have a national database, 33% of the farms that are out there, state veterinarians and their people are going to be on the road looking for those other 77% of folks that fall into an emergent, or what we would call a control area. So in a perfect world, what you'd like to do is have the state veterinarian be able to take a mapping program, draw a little circle, and in that circle it pops up those dots and it tells you what type of animal's there, who's the main contact for those animals, and then you can easily take that information into your incident command structure and start using call banks to do the calls to talk to people. Because in the true world of emergency response, until we have an area identified, all the people identified in there that have susceptible animals, that we've communicated with them, given them the tools for the biosecurity that they need to implement, given them or started working on our surveillance plan to show that folks that are outside of the area are negative, and until we get all of that done, there's nothing that's going to be moving in this country as far as a susceptible animal if we have FMD. For us as an industry, our producers can only hold pigs for roughly 3 days. And then they've got to start moving, or we've got welfare problems, and we certainly don't want that as an industry. So the quicker that the state veterinarian has the tools to contact everybody in that zone, communicate with them, give them the tools so they can protect their farms, and get them involved in a surveillance program that will help prove the negative ones and show us where the disease is and isn't. If we can't do that in a short period of time, we're all in a world of hurt as far as agriculture is concerned. So premises identification goes a long way into doing that, and it gives the state vets the tools they need. Because if you look at communications, if you're going to do connectivity, the premises ID number is a wonderful way for people to use their database to start sorting folks out and giving them calls. If you're going to communicate with individuals, it's a lot easier if you know where they are so you can get the information into them, but more importantly, get the information out. That's going to facilitate emergency response a lot and make it a lot quicker. Same thing with tracing. We've got a lot of databases out there that exist. Producers keep data, packers keep data. We've got health paper systems like Global Vet Link that keep data. If you want connectivity, you're going to link them together by that premises ID number so you can search very easily through those databases. Same thing if you're going to start looking at data in other databases like surveillance databases. In our world, the swine industry, there's a lot of surveillance streams. If you can connect everything together by one common premises identification number format, then you're going to speed up the ability to do those searches and be able to respond a lot quicker. Same thing if you're going to have to get diagnostic samples, it's a lot easier to do that if you know where folks are. So you can send your people out, and then you can take everything to the laboratory and communicate all that information back. If you've got a Prem ID that everybody's using as part of the data set, you've got a very traceable way to do fun things to help in your emergency response. The same thing occurs if we ever have to go out and do any vaccination widespread for foreign animal disease. You got to have the ability to do it, and having Prems out there pre-identified helps states plan those type of activities. So capturing and using Prems look at our pork producers today. For us in our ID plan, the premises ID number provides us the ability to identify our groups and lots of animals and also our culled breeding stock. On our premises identification number tag for culled breeding stock, it is the premises ID number of the breeding farm that's on that tag. So that prem number actually provides us a value on the tags that go into sows and boars that are going to harvest. Also, our pens are being captured in our movement records. Again, if it's electronic movement record and you've got that premises ID number in there, it makes it a lot easier to do your sorting and all the things that you would need to do trace outs, because you've got one common standardized premises format to work with. Another thing that our producers are using, or capturing and using prems for, they're getting their prems because as part of our pork quality assurance program, if they want to be eligible for our site assessment component for welfare, they have to have a premises ID number, because that's how we store them in the database. And the reason that we store them in the database using prem is because it's a standardized number that's already out there that is standardized across all states. So it's worked very well on our programs for producers, and has also driven a lot of producers to get their premises identification number because they are participating in PQA+. But there's also cool things that companies are coming up with. Dallas was telling me about a company that he visited with that they used the premises ID number in a barcode format for feed applications. So basically scanning in the batch of feed to the prem at the plant. When it gets to the farm, they scan in that premises ID number so they know that it's going into the right farm. And those type of applications, especially if you're delivering feed, those are good things, because you want to make sure that the right feed is getting to your right animals at the right time, so you can either continue to grow those pigs effectively, or in instances where they're about ready to go to harvest, you certainly don't want to bring something in that would have a residue in it. And so their system is working very well with producers to keep their feed, getting and delivering feed and making sure it's the right batch that goes to the right barn. So there's all sorts of cool things that other people that are smarter in the business world could use a standardized premises identifier for that would help producers, and if they can convince producers of the value, producers will use the product. And then finally, our pork packers and processors, really they benefit from premises ID too. Again, the enhanced pre-harvest traceability for them is a good thing. And putting the premises ID in their records along with all the other data that they keep is a very good thing for them. However, there are some benefits that come back to the states and to the industry. If designed appropriately, if packers are capturing prem IDs on both ends of the spectrum for breeding farms and finishing farms, if that information is packaged and delivered back to the states, you just had a way to update your active premises. Or you could do the reverse of that, where you'd get a report that would tell you of your inactive premises. I mean, there's all sorts of fun things that the industry can work cooperatively with the states and federal government on to benefit not only our premises registration databases, but as well as our surveillance programs. Some packers I've talked to are using the Prem ID as streamlining their records. Now that they're confident that producers are going to have the same type of number out there, they can use those for their record-keeping purposes. And then there's another thing that they can do, verifying an attribute. What is an attribute? Everybody look at those pigs that are on that truck there. If I was to deliver those to a packing plant, would you be able to tell me if they were free range just by looking at them? Or antibiotic free? Would you be able to tell they're part of the PQA Plus program? You see, when pigs are delivered, if you have a premises ID that is attached to that load that's being delivered, it's very easy for people to develop a database that can be compared against for that attribute. Our pork quality assurance database is an attribute database. Packers want pigs from producers who participate in pork quality assurance. Now with the Prem ID, they can actually go back and compare in that database to make sure that those animals that are being delivered meet that attribute. And so those are things that packers would be able to do with that in conjunction with industry to benefit pork producers and move more pork. So, thanks for your time, and thank you.